I was billing too many hours to spend time thinking about it and figuring it out. And really, what I should just have done was to try to not worry about at all and try to be. I mean, I was a good problem solver, but maybe I would have been like a super duper problem solver for the clients. Maybe that would have made me invaluable in a way that I otherwise wasn't able to do because I had this other weight I was constantly dragging around.
Welcome to Becoming the GC, the podcast that dives deep into the journeys of general counsels and chief legal officers, uncovering the insights and strategies that help define their success. Hosted by Joe Schul, founder of Inside Counsel Academy. We share real-life stories and practical advice from successful GCs, guiding you on your journey to the top. Tune in and discover what it takes to become the exceptional legal leader your organization needs.
My guest today is Mike Geroe, and in this episode, we follow Mike from his California roots through a fascinating career that takes him from the West Coast to the East Coast and back again, but not before spending a good chunk of time in the middle of the country. Along the way, Mike shares candid stories from his time in big law, his leap into startups, and the lessons he's learned about resilience, reinvention, and finding fulfillment as a legal professional. Whether you're a sitting or aspiring general counsel or simply love a great journey, Mike's story offers inspiration and a few laughs along the way. Here's Mike's bio. Mike Geroe is a seasoned technology executive and former general counsel of AdKnowledge, where he oversaw all legal compliance and corporate affairs during a period of rapid growth and innovation. A graduate of Columbia Law School, Mike and I were in the same class, he began his career in private practice advising technology and media clients on complex commercial matters. He later founded his own startup, giving him a rare dual perspective as both entrepreneur and legal strategist. We'll hear more about all that on today's show. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have you. And for our listeners, Mike and I went to law school together back in the late 1900s. So, and we
roughly 100 years ago. Yeah.
We recently connected at a little Columbia Law School reunion that we had, and so I thought he'd be a great guy to have on the show. And Mike lives down in San Diego. Is that where you grew up?
Yeah. I mean, I was born in LA. Actually, I was born in Hollywood, but that was before Hollywood got split in two. And my dad got it in San Diego in the 70s. So we moved up from, or I guess down from LA. And I stayed here through high school. And didn't leave until college.
Okay. And then where did you go to college?
I was a bit of a collegiate vagabond. I started at UCSD. They had a program as a senior. You could be enrolled as a freshman at UCSD. So
as a senior in high school?
As a high school senior, this was in like the late 1985, 1986. They had a program where you could apply and contemporaneously be enrolled as a freshman and a high school senior. So I did that. And then at the end of my senior year in high school, I'm like, well, I already spent a year at UCSD. So I transferred from UCSD to Cal. I wanted to be just like every, teenage guy in California at that time. I wanted to be an electrical engineer. Everyone was reading about Apple Computer and the fight with IBM, and that was going to be the future. So I was very interested in that, and I had taken, math and science classes in high school. So when I got to Cal, I realized that like the level of math skill necessary to be an electrical engineer was just like a few orders of magnitude above what I was ever gonna have. And so I thought, well, you already transferred once. That's how you got here. Let's do it again. And so this time I transferred to Georgetown. I went from one extreme, like math science focus on the West Coast, to sort of the opposite of that, which was history major. I became a history major out east at Georgetown. And so that was it. I transferred to Georgetown as a sophomore. I graduated from Georgetown, and from there I went to law school.
And you went straight from Georgetown to law school?
I did. There was the summer of my senior year at Georgetown. I was in I don't know, some kind of a special program at the U.S. Department of State at Main State down on East Street. And I was very much thinking of taking the Foreign Service officer exam and becoming an FSO if I could. And I had just an incredible experience, a bunch of mentors, and I had applied early to law school through, it's me in the special programs. I'm always in some kind of weird special program. So Georgetown had a special program where you could apply early to Georgetown Law and get admitted like super early if you were already a Georgetown undergrad. So I had done that. I was sitting on an offer from Columbia, and I wanted to take the Foreign Service exam and not go to law school. And every person I respected at the State Department basically said, "You're a fool if you stay here and don't go to law school." They're like, "Go to law school." Yeah, seriously. Not like if one mentor had said, "Take the exam and stay," I would have done it. I probably would have done it. But there was this other lady I was working with who she wasn't a lawyer, but apparently at the time, State Department was under a consent decree for not offering sufficient career advancement to women. And she was aware of this. And she was like, "Yeah, I'm totally," she was in the same, honors program at State. And she said, "I'm totally going to take advantage of this. I'm going to take the Foreign Service exam, and I'm going to be a fast track on a fast track career, and I'm basically going to lap you because of this consent decree." That's kind of the running joke we had. So at some point that summer, we're having lunch, and I'm like, "All right, well, are you signing up for the exam?" Because it was time to sign up. She's like, "Yeah, I decided I'm not going to stay."
And she decided. Okay.
She decided she's not going to stay. So between that and what all my mentors said, I was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to take the Foreign Service exam." And I accepted the offer from Columbia, and I was like, Georgetown Law was great, but I'd already been at Georgetown. I'd already been in DC. I had never lived in New York. The opportunity, to do that was very attractive to me. And it was something different. And that's what I was doing as a kid. I was always something different. If I was in San Diego, I wanted to be in San Francisco. If I was in San Francisco, I wanted to be in DC. So it was like a natural progression. If I was in DC, why would I want to stay in DC? Let me go to New York. So that's what I did.
Now when you graduated though, you did stay in New York for a while, right?
No, of course not.
Well, I knew you were with Dewey Valentine, right?
By the way.
Not the New York office?
I was not. Well, on paper, I was, my duty station was in Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay.
But I had spent a lot of time in the New York office. Most of it, clearly I spent more time in the D.C. office, but there were a lot of projects that either required me to go or that I volunteered to do that brought me back to New York.
Okay. So, and then what kind of work were you doing at the law firm?
So at Dewey, I was doing, it was this weird combination of Title II and Title 19 work. Title II work was this super niche federal election law thing. And that stemmed from my mentor at Dewey Ballantyne, who is a legend, gentleman by the name of Miles Link, who at one point was president of the DC Bar. And anyway, so he did Title II work, which meant that I did Title II work. But again, sort of on paper, I was in a group called the International Trade Group, and all of that, well, 80+% of that work was Title 19 work, which was all like anti-dumping and countervailing duty and sort of trade compliance. And that kind of bled into allied compliance type work. I do some antitrust compliance. I do dispute resolution, which was litigation. I do different kinds of litigation. Some of them, a lot of it was before Article III courts. I mean, mainly the Court of International Trade, but some of it was like NAFTA panels. We do NAFTA appeals at the time. Dewey Ballantyne historically represented petitioners, meaning American industry. So we'd represent, the lumber industry against Canada, basically, or Quebec. We'd represent, the steel industry against steel manufacturers from around the world, from, the UK to France and China. You name it. We had specialties like photographic film and paper. We represented Kodak in disputes against Fujifilm and paper, and it was a highly specialized practice.
Yeah,
and it really only existed in Washington, D.C. and in New York. And at some point, I realized that I was really driving myself into a very small niche, and my ability to find clients was going to be negligible. So I took opportunities. I mean, did you work for a big firm out of law school?
Well, I did, and I mean, it's funny because my path was 5 years in big law, corporate M&A. And this was the plan from the beginning. I'm going to do 5 years corporate M&A, then I'm going to go in-house, then I'm going to rise up and become a GC. Hardly anybody.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so I thought that that's just like the normal path. Hardly anybody I've interviewed.
I didn't get that memo. Joe, why didn't you call me? Because that would have saved me a lot of time. Trust me. If I would have got that one.
Had what I thought of as the traditional path to the GC chair. So this is what's fascinating to me is like, all right, well, we're right now at DC early in your career. And how did you get from there to a GC job? That's what fascinates me.
Yeah, well, so the reason I ask you this question is because I'm sure the same thing happened to you. Is you'd be working and then just in email it would go to everyone, not just you, but would you like to help with project X? You'd have to go to the New York office. Everyone got those emails.
Yeah.
So once sort of my Neanderthal mind was this is like a career limiting move here. If you're only going to do Title 19 work and you're only going to do Title II work, you either better have a lot of beer buddies who are presidential candidates or, like steel magnates or something like that. Because short of that, you're going to get stuck. So I started volunteering for these projects that had, broader application and would bring me into contact with a broader array of, corporate executives, not like super specialized people.
Yep.
And so that got me into, just very large, complex litigation suits. A lot of them were life sciences oriented, large pharmaceutical companies, health, health insurance companies, etc. And I tried. I also tried to like volunteer in DC at like the local government level. It was called an ANC commissioner. I was an ANC commissioner. So people would come to the commission for various reasons. And that brought me into contact with some local executives. So that's when I started meeting people face to face that weren't, quote, introduced to me by the firm. And, this was, smash cut to the late 1990s at this point where, AOL was just bursting at the seams and people were leaving the company and creating their own startups. And all those startups were like in Northern Virginia and Metro DC. So if you were going out to bars and restaurants and doing sort of the business development circuit, you'd run into those people. And just by dint of doing that, I got what I would say is a small group of, half a dozen little startup clients that were interested in legal counsel. And I'd excitedly, talk to partners at Dewey Ballantine about it, and they'd roll their eyes and they'd be like, "Yeah, Mike, we're not interested in your little startups. Right. Could you please go and right?" So
we certainly don't want the conflicts.
Yeah, I mean, I was just super naive. I didn't have your play sheet about the 5 years or whatever it was. I was struggling. And there was a smaller firm, a Richmond, Virginia-based firm by the name of Williams Mullen, who was more, middle market, not servicing basically, Fortune 500. I mean, they had Fortune 500 companies, but not as many of them. And they were far more open to
to your entrepreneurial instincts, which are going to take far, as we're going to hear. Yeah. So
that's sort of when I jumped ship from Dewey Ballantine to Williams Mullen. And as you may or may not remember, depending on how involved you were with tech, that's when the internet bubble kind of burst, and AOL could was shrinking, and these startups were dying on the vine. And so just as I had sort of made partner at this new firm, it took a little bit of time to work through the system, but, collecting bills became harder, and hard luck stories became more frequent. And, of course, these entrepreneurs and executives were people that I had become friends with and had known for years from my time at Dewey Ballantine, when I brought them over with me to Williams Mullen. So, busting their chops to try and, wring a few grand that they didn't have anyway.
Right.
Right. So that whole arc started to sour, and that was around the time. I'm accelerating the time this here from a summary standpoint, but I got a phone call. Well, I got many phone calls. Everyone was getting phone calls from headhunters. So I'd field calls from headhunters. Most of them were like totally irrelevant or not of interest, or I was utterly unqualified for. But there was this one where the guy kept talking about being a GC for a hotshot internet company that was funded on Madison Avenue. And that, seemed interesting. So as as time went on, he'd call me back every month just to check in, and the job, they were still interviewing for it. And so I finally said, yeah, let's talk. Let's have a more serious conversation about it. And at that point, I learned that the Madison Avenue that he was talking about was not the Madison Avenue in New York, which he, of course, understood that was my assumption, that it was a Madison Avenue startup in Manhattan. But it was on Madison Avenue in Kansas City, Missouri, because yeah.
So, the other Madison Avenue.
The other Madison Avenue. So I said, yeah, that's probably not going to work. I don't have any ties to the Midwest, and it's just not going to work. So he was persistent. He kept calling back, and my situation kept looking darker and darker. And so I talked to my wife about it, and she was not that interested. So I didn't know what to do. So what I did was I gave the guy terms and a number that I thought would make him go away.
Yeah.
And I said, I'd be happy to help these people as outside counsel. We could kick the tires with each other, and I could work from Williams Mullen and see if they paid, blah blah blah. And when that didn't work, I just said, all right, here's what I need. Here's my salary number. Here's the stock options I want, and here's the housing accommodation I need. And so I figured I wouldn't hear from them again. And then he called me back like 60 days later, and I'm like, all right, well, if he's agreeing to all this, let me go out. They flew me out. They put me up at a nice hotel, and I met the founder. We hit it off, and long story short, I ended up saying yes. And part of the terms were that I need time to relocate my family and find a house. So they put me up in nice corporate housing for a while, and I was using that time just to make sure that I could cash the checks and they weren't bouncing, and the salary was what we had agreed, and the stock option agreement was signed. And so that was it. The bottom line is the fellow I ended up working for and with, an entrepreneur by the name of Scott Lynn, he was the real deal.
It was the real deal. Look at that. And so then your family followed you, and you were a Kansas City resident?
I was in Kansas City. I told him I was a pretty open book, and I said, I could probably only keep my wife here for about 3 years. And he laughed at me and he said, Mike, in 3 years, we're either going to IPO, be rich and retired, or completely unemployed, because that's all the runway I got. I don't have more than 3 years. And, of course, that didn't end up being exactly accurate. So I spent the next 10 or 11 working with them. But indeed, after about 3.5 years, I left Kansas City, and I was working from Southern California.
Oh, okay. Got it. And the name of this company?
Well, it doesn't exist anymore, but it's called Ad Knowledge.
That's Ad Knowledge. Okay. And what did you guys do? What was the product?
It was an ad tech play, advertising tech play. It was really it was a two-sided marketplace between advertisers and consumers, basically. Its mission was really to show the right ad at the right time. It was employing novel advertising technology to get the right ad in front of the right person. And the sort of compliance regulatory work that I had done with the agencies, not exactly the antitrust work, though, there were some antitrust issues that came up in later years. They were minor, but certainly the familiarity with working with federal agencies and state agencies on compliance was something that was enormously useful. And the experience of working on sort of complex, before at Dewey and to some extent at Williams Mullen, there were, complex litigation issues, some complex contracting, but the bread and butter work at AdKnowledge was really licensing, and then a little bit of prosecution, maybe some collections work, but a lot of defense, a lot of getting accused of being, email spammers, a lot of litigation around that.
Yeah. What led this recruiter to you? Why did he reach out to you, do you think?
I think he reached out to many, many people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he just reached out to me. How he specifically found me, I honestly don't know. This move was, I left Dewey at 2000. So this was like in 2003 or 2004. Actually, I don't think I started at AdKnowledge until the summer of 2004. So, the 250-foot level details, I don't remember, but I do remember he was one of many recruiters that I was in touch with. I remember the one thing I remember about Dewey Ballantine that was great. I mean, I worked my tail off and I did a lot of hours, but they give you 2 weeks of vacation, and they would tell you, take the 2 weeks because the rest of the time you're ours.
Yeah.
So I would totally take that vacation, no matter how complicated my matters were. Remember, we had to do those matter sheets, like refer to whoever, like these intricate multi-page emails that you internally send out, like who was covering for you when you were on these vacations.
Yeah.
So I would take them, and while I was on these vacations, that was the time I had to like talk to recruiters because I was like not in the office. And so I'd be in Europe or I'd be on some crazy vacation, but I'd be on the phone trying to talk to a recruiter about a job. So yeah, I don't remember exactly how, why, or when this particular guy came across my resume.
Yeah, it's funny. I do remember those matter sheets and who was covering for you on each matter. Now it's like you're covering for yourself when you're on vacation, right? Because we're all
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Too funny. Okay, so how did that job end? Did the company get bought or?
Well, yeah. So that company was headquartered in Kansas City, Missouri. And as I told you, I like on day zero, I kind of warned Scott that my shelf life in Kansas City was going to be, more or less 3 years.
Yeah.
So after 3.5 years, I with his cooperation, I came to California, and he didn't even have an office here at the time. He's like, Mike, you're my GC. Really? You're like going to go to a city where we don't even have like a freaking office? So he opened an office in LA, in West LA. And long story short, I would commute to that office, and I worked there for years until they closed. It was a sales office, but anyway, at some point, the executive management team and the investors were like, we're going to IPO. It's time to IPO. And at that point, they wanted the management team back in Kansas City. They called it the cockpit. They're like, everyone's got to be in the cockpit. I can't like try and do a dog and pony show and get people to invest in the company and try and go public and then have like my GC out you know, in some outpost somewhere. So you got to come back to Kansas City. And the executive summary was that my family didn't want to go back to Kansas City. It was a nice place, but we had no ties to Kansas City. And
Right.
we had already spent, 3 years there. And now I've got two daughters. They were like super young when they were in Kansas City, but at this point they were in school, they had friends. And so
Sure.
breaking that up became problematic. So again, long story short, I helped interview, hire, and train my replacement. Basically, I trained him for 2 years, and then I walked out the door, and that was like December. That was like the end of 2014. That was basically December 2014. So it was amicable. Scott, the company gave me a lot of runway. And so then I was like, what do I do now? What I decided to do was take what I had learned at Ad Knowledge with a focus on compliance and apply that to some branch of ad tech advertising. So that's what this startup was by the name of Opt-in Call. And what would happen is I'd have friends and colleagues who I knew over the years, either from my time before Ad Knowledge, sometimes from my time at Ad Knowledge, other alums who had left the company. They'd call me up and they'd be like, "Hey, Mike, I know you're doing this startup, but I could really use a hand on this little project. Could you help me on this little project? I'll pay you for it." And so I was trying to spend all my time, growing this startup. But what I realized at some point in time was really keeping the lights on and the mortgage paid was all these little side projects I was doing. And I was running into a lot of trouble on the startup because what I knew how to do was be a lawyer. That's what was in my DNA.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
at that point that I was like, all right, look, I kind of backed into this, but in addition to doing this startup, this DC, I reopened a little private practice. And so that's what I did.
Okay. So tell me about Opt-in.
Yeah, Opt-in Call is a startup that's focused on giving consumers the tools to make informed decisions on complex purchases. So the business focuses on, about a dozen verticals, complex products or services. So think insurance products, health insurance products, or education, for-profit education, nursing, for example. And we connect consumers with service providers or product providers anonymously, meaning the consumer can speak directly to a service provider, get their questions answered, but not give up their phone number or frankly even their name. Just similar to Ad Knowledge, it's a two-sided marketplace, but all the advertiser knows is whenever it is they decide to launch their advertising campaign, they'll be connected to someone interested in their product or service, but they won't have the name or contact information of that person. So we connect them over the phone, and if the consumer likes what they're hearing and it's a good conversation, the consumer can share his or her name and contact information, and they can continue that discussion to make the purchase. So the use case here is people who are going through some kind of a career or life change, someone who's getting married, someone who's getting divorced, someone who's moving because they just got a new job or they just lost a job, and so they either need insurance, or they need auto insurance, or maybe they're trying to put solar on their roof or some kind of a home remodel. But its focus is something that you can't just go to Target or Walmart and just buy off the shelf. It's something that's more expensive, more complicated, and you're going to want to do some research about it.
These are in the consumers are people who want to do this anonymously for personal reasons, or they don't want to be bombarded.
Exactly. It's to protect their privacy. They don't want their I don't know when was the last time you looked for auto insurance or home insurance, but if you do it over the internet, often you end up filling in a lead gen form. And I mean, the way, or even a mortgage, sometimes if you don't go directly to a conventional bank, they'll have you fill out these lead sheets, and they'll sell the data in the lead sheets. You end up getting 50 phone calls in a week, different people who want to.
So the question is, how do you get on the mortgage side?
Right. So the question is, how can you learn what you want to learn, but not get, spam phone calls or spam emails, or how do you just get the info you want and then have the freedom to make your own decision without getting harassed by other service providers? That's what we solve for.
And so then how do you guys get paid? By the service providers?
Exactly. Basically, if the connection lasts longer than 60 seconds, they pay us a flat fee for each connection. If if they get an answering machine, or if one of the kids picks up the phone, they can hang up within a minute, and then there's no charge. And they call whenever they want. The salespeople can call on a campaign. Maybe they're at the airport and their flight's delayed, and they want to do some work. They can just dial into the system. It's all automated. It's patented. It's not even patent pending. We've got a patented system to handle all this.
And then you co-founded this company.
Correct.
Right. And how long have you guys been at it?
Really, since I left AdKnowledge.
Okay, so a decade.
I mean, probably I took 6 months, maybe a little bit longer, to just cool down and find my bearings. And then I connected with, an old buddy, and, that's when we sort of started to spin things up. So probably it wasn't literally after I left, but, pretty close thereafter.
Yeah, that's great. And then you have law offices of Mike Geroe.
Right. Hung out my own shingle. That's what my mom told me to do. My mom wanted me to be a doctor, but I wasn't good enough for that either. So this was the next best option.
Well, so what are you most looking forward to?
I really enjoy the different challenges that this entrepreneurial space has. I've been doing it since AdKnowledge, and it's like a different cast of characters and a different set of challenges, and it's all sort of in the same sandbox. It's how do you raise money to fight another day? How do you comply with this changing montage of regulations? What's old is new again. And I just enjoy doing what I'm doing. And at this point, I feel like I've been doing it so long. It's not that I can do it in my sleep, but I know what's in my wheelhouse, and I try to stick to my lane. And over the years, I've found other colleagues in private practice who are good at what they do, and if it's tax law or insurance law or, 33, 34 Act stuff, I know who to go to. So I got my own little network. I'm active. I continue to be active in the in-house bar, the Association of Corporate Counsel, where, I swap stories and headaches with other, startup GCs. And I'm also a member of the ABA, although I haven't had time to travel as much. For the ABA, you got to travel more. The ACC activities are more, like in your city, in your town, and so
Right,
more
the local chapters, and plus the ACC National comes to San Diego
sometimes.
every few
Exactly.
years. Yeah, exactly. Right.
So yeah, I mean, I just keep doing what I'm doing, and so far so good.
What advice would you give to your younger self? Maybe the younger self when you were feeling like a bit pigeonholed.
Yeah. You know, the starkest contrast to me from being outside counsel and being in-house was the following. When I was Dewey and at Williams Mullen, I was with a team of super talented people. The people in general, the people, with with the same level of experience. We were all in the same class. We were kind of the same age, not necessarily, but we were in the same partnership class. At some level, each one of us understood we were kind of competing against each other for a very limited number of slots, and we were not all going to make partner. So if your long game was partnership, over as the years passed, that competition was going to sharpen. When I was when I was at Dewey, partnership track was like 7 or 8 years. And when I was there for 7 years, I knew people in New York because I had spent so much time in New York. I knew people in DC, of course, because that's where I was. I had friends and supporters. I had made successful inroads to branch out of Title II and Title 19. They wanted me to take another lap, take another year or two before they were even going to consider me for partnership. And so that's sort of when I moved over to this other law firm. And I mean, as a partner, the dynamic was a little bit different, but it was still high level. It was still very much, what have you done for me lately kind of atmosphere. So when I moved in-house, I was at the time, I was like one of one. I was with a bunch of talented people. None of them were lawyers. I was like the only lawyer. That was like the weirdest thing. Probably took me 2 years to get used to that. Not, I would have never admitted it at the time, but I was like, oh my God, where are my colleagues? I mean, they were all other, managers of other departments, but none of them were lawyers. So that, without knowing it, lifted a pressure, a type of pressure, whether you were competing to make partner or whether you were competing to, make sure your yield was sufficient and your collectibles were going to clear for what the partnership expected, and all of that, it just dissipated. And it's not that there weren't other kind of pressures, but frankly, the pressures I had moved into, the way it felt to me, the pressures I had moved into versus the pressures that I had been experiencing for the last 10 years, it was like a cream puff. It was like, are you kidding me? What? So I had the mental real estate to really enjoy being a lawyer in a way that I never let myself do while I was in private practice, because I was always thinking about something else. Now, I'm not, again, it's not like Ad Knowledge was like a frickin' trip to, Disneyland or Candyland or something like that, because there was absolutely pressure for the business. You wanted to figure out how to make contracts work and how to mitigate the risk, but it was all like a different order of magnitude from the weight that I felt had lifted from me. So if I could go back and tell my younger self anything, what I would have told myself, and I don't know how I would have done it, honestly, would be to try to lift that weight, try to just focus on being a good lawyer and trust that the rest will take care of itself. Because I was so stressed, and as I indicated at the beginning of this call, I still had no plan. It's not like I had a plan like you did, like 5 years and then jump ship. That just, it didn't occur to me. I was too dumb, or I was billing too many hours to spend time thinking about it and figuring it out. And really what I should just have done was to try to not worry about that at all, and try to be, I mean, I was a good problem solver, but maybe I would have been like a super duper problem solver for the clients. Maybe that would have made me invaluable in a way that I otherwise wasn't able to do, because I had this other weight I was constantly dragging around.
Yeah, super interesting, right? And with the benefit of hindsight, you realize how much of that was self-imposed.
Yeah.
Because you were the same person in a new environment, you didn't have it.
Right.
Love it. That's a great place to leave it. I love the wisdom in there. It's a wisdom that takes years to accumulate. So thank you for sharing it with us.
Well, absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity to share it and to reconnect. It was great seeing you.
Likewise, Mike. Thank you for being on the show.
All right. You bet.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
I think that last part is going to be the teaser, because I mean, that really, I know young lawyers. My daughter's a young lawyer at a firm, and I don't know, that really resonated with me right at the end there.
Yeah, but it's
a tough environment, like being surrounded by competitive lawyers and no one else, like when you're at a law firm.
I know, but there's no way to fix it, Joe. You can tell yourself don't be stressed out, but it doesn't work that way, because you're just not wired that way.
I mean, part of how we get in that environment is having been wired that way to begin with.
Right.
And we all know people who, were at firms and not like that, and they didn't do well because they were too laid back, whatever. So I guess I don't know the answer, but
yeah, it's just.
But I think the wisdom is like, hey, it's all gonna work out. It's gonna work out the way it will work out.
Yeah, and it's going to be okay. And you know what's funny? You know what that reminds me of is Steve Jobs, sort of like talking, sort of saying the same sort of thing, that going forward, it doesn't make any sense. But looking backward, it does make sense. It's like the difference between 3D and 4D. If you're trapped in 3D, you're stuck. There's just no way to fix it. Because every time you look at your colleagues, no matter how nice they are, you understand, you're like Neanderthal mind understands they're a competitor, right? I mean, that's just the way it is.
You're funny. I'm going to get you out of here on time, but what are your daughters up to?
Well, one is in Seattle. She's an electrical engineer for Boeing.
Oh, wow. That's neat. Where does she work up there?
She's in Renton.
Okay.
She's at the Renton factory, working galleys for 737, I think 900s.
Okay. My wife worked at Boeing, and she loves going to Seattle and showing me the different places she worked. And yeah.
Well, probably either Everett or Renton. Those are the two main sites.
Yeah, exactly. And both at different times. And we went last summer and toured, like the largest indoor, the large aircraft facility.
That was Renton.
That's Renton. In Renton. Yeah, it was incredible. It's incredible.
It's hilarious because the parking lot, if you like go the wrong way and get lost, you find like these partially assembled like airplanes, like 747s
Yeah,
in
right.
the parking lot. It's
Crazy.
pretty weird.
Well, that's cool. And then what about the other one?
The older one, she is working here in San Diego, and she's doing a few different kinds of jobs, retail, but also freelance paralegal work, including paralegal work for me.
Oh, look at
So,
that.
funny how that works
That's cool.
out.
That's cool. Yeah, good. All right, great. Well, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. The show gets produced, then it gets released. It's probably going to come out in 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thanks again, Joe.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity to reminisce and
I love keeping connected.
and,
So if you get, and if I get down that way, I'm going to be sure to look you up and vice versa.
perfect. Well,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. All right, take care.
You too. Bye.
Here are my biggest takeaways from today's interview. Number 1, focus on developing your skills and being a truly good problem solver for your clients, rather than getting lost in competition or pressure. Trust that opportunities will follow from your genuine value. Number 2, embrace flexibility and resilience. Mike's path shows that taking risks, learning from setbacks, and building on every experience are key to long-term growth in both business and law. And number 3, be open to new places. Mike's willingness to relocate across the country, even to unexpected destination, led to invaluable career experiences and personal growth. Sometimes the best opportunities are found when you're willing to step outside your comfort zone and embrace a new environment. Okay, until next time, this is Joe Scholl. I'd love to connect with any in-house lawyers or outside lawyers serving in-house lawyers who are interested in maximizing their full potential. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn to start a conversation.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Becoming the GC. Whether you're preparing for the GC role or looking to sharpen your skills as a sitting general counsel, we hope this episode offered valuable insights and inspiration. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your colleagues and friends. Explore more resources and join our community at InsideCounselAcademy.com. Please tune in next time for more insights and inspiring stories from successful legal leaders.